On the day of my grandson's graduation, they handed out tickets to every member of the family, except me. When I asked my daughter why, she looked at me and said, "You're not needed." My heart broke right there. But when the ceremony started, the principal stepped onto the stage and announced a brand new scholarship in my name. The crowd stood up and cheered. If this story has pulled you in already, make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment below where you're watching from. I love seeing our community from all over the world. My name is Walter Hayes. I am 73 years old, a retired mechanic who spent most of his life working with his hands and providing for his family. I never had much money, but I always made sure my children had food on the table, clothes on their backs, and an education I never got to finish myself. My pride and joy has always been my grandson, Jacob. When his parents were busy, he would spend weekends at my house. I taught him how to ride his bike on the old gravel road behind my shop. I helped him with his math homework when he struggled. I even gave him the first set of tools he ever owned, telling him, "These are not just tools, Jacob. They're lessons. Learn how to fix things, and you'll never feel helpless in life." I looked forward to his graduation day more than almost anyone. I had dreamed of sitting in that crowd, clapping the loudest when his name was called. I imagined shaking his hand, maybe even giving a small speech about how proud I was. But the weeks leading up to the ceremony were full of small hints that something wasn't right. My daughter, Linda, Jacob's mother, had grown distant with me. She often dismissed me in conversations. When I'd ask simple questions, she'd answer coldly, as though my presence was an inconvenience. Still, I believed that family was family. I thought no matter how much she pushed me aside, she would never keep me away from Jacob's big day. I was wrong. On the morning the tickets were handed out, I stood there waiting. I watched as Linda gave them to her husband, her friends, and even distant relatives I barely knew. When I asked, "What about mine?" she looked straight at me and said words I'll never forget. "You're not needed there." I froze. The air left my lungs. This was the moment I realized how little she valued me. I wanted to argue, to remind her of all the nights I stayed up with Jacob when he was sick, all the mornings I drove him to school when she was busy, all the ways I had supported him when she couldn't. But no words came out. I just nodded slowly and went home, carrying a weight in my chest heavier than any engine I had ever lifted. As the hours passed and the time for the ceremony drew closer, I sat alone at my kitchen table, staring at the old photographs of Jacob smiling in my workshop. My heart ached, but I told myself one thing: even if I wasn't there, I would still be proud of him. The morning of Jacob's graduation felt heavier than any day I could remember. The sun shone bright, but I stayed inside, sitting by the window with a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. I could hear the faint sound of cars passing, people dressed up and heading toward the school. It should have been my happiest day as a grandfather, but instead, it felt like a punishment. I kept replaying Linda's words in my head. "You're not needed there." The way she said it wasn't careless. It was sharp, like a blade. I tried to understand why. Had I done something to upset her? Had I not given enough, not supported her enough over the years? The truth was, I had always been there, even when it was hard. When she lost her first job, I covered her bills. When Jacob was just a baby and his parents struggled, I rocked him to sleep night after night so they could rest. How could all of that add up to being unwanted? I went to my small wooden box in the bedroom and pulled out a folder I kept hidden away. Inside were old report cards, little drawings Jacob had made, and a photo of the two of us fixing his first bike. I remembered that day so clearly. His face lit up when the wheels finally balanced. He had hugged me tight and said, "Grandpa, you're the best." That memory burned in me now. How could the same family that I gave everything to decide I didn't belong at his graduation? As the hours crept by, the silence in my house felt unbearable. Margaret, my late wife, would have known what to say. She had always been the one to calm my storms, but she was gone now, and all I had was my own voice echoing in my head. Maybe Linda is right. Maybe I'm just an old man with nothing left to give. I walked outside and sat on the porch, watching the world move on without me. The neighbors across the street were loading into their car, dressed in bright clothes. They waved as they pulled away, but the pity in their eyes was clear. They knew I wasn't going. They had seen me help Jacob with his school projects in the garage. They had watched him run into my yard after school, and now they were heading to his ceremony while I stayed behind. The clock ticked closer to noon. My chest grew tighter with every minute. I thought about driving to the school anyway, standing outside the gate just to catch a glimpse of Jacob in his cap and gown. But then Linda's voice came back, louder than ever. "You're not needed." What if she saw me there and made a scene? What if she turned Jacob against me on his special day? I couldn't risk ruining it for him. So I stayed home. I turned on the old radio, trying to drown out my thoughts, but the announcer's cheerful voice only made me feel more alone. I pictured the gymnasium filling with parents and grandparents, the proud faces, the clicking of cameras. My seat would be empty. The one person Jacob might have expected to see most, missing. I tried to tell myself it didn't matter, that the day was about him, not me. But, deep inside, I felt invisible, like all the years of sacrifice had been erased with one cruel sentence. My hands trembled as I set down my coffee cup. My eyes burned, not just with sadness, but with the heavy weight of being forgotten. Around 1 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a message from an old friend who knew about the graduation. It read, "Thinking of you today. You must be proud." I stared at the words, my throat tightening. Yes, I was proud, more than anyone could imagine. But I also felt broken, left behind by the very people I had poured my life into. I stood up and walked back inside, pacing the living room. My heart fought between anger and love. I was angry at Linda for shutting me out, but I loved Jacob too much to let bitterness take over. No matter how much it hurt, I refused to let my grandson's big day be stained by my pain. I whispered aloud, almost like a prayer, "I'm proud of you, Jacob. Whether I'm there or not, I'm proud." But deep down, I wondered, would he even notice I was missing? Would he look for me in the crowd and feel the sting of my absence? Or had Linda convinced him too that I wasn't needed? The conflict was not just about being left out of a graduation. It was about feeling erased, unwanted, and unseen by my own blood. And as I stood in my quiet house while the ceremony began across town, I had no idea that everything was about to change in a way no one expected. As the ceremony went on without me, I sat in my chair by the window, staring out at the quiet street. My house felt empty, too empty for such a big day. I could almost imagine the gymnasium across town filled with balloons, flowers, proud families cheering as each name was called. My name wasn't there, my face wasn't in the crowd, and my heart ached with every thought of it. I walked over to the mantel where the family photos sat. There was Jacob at age 6, standing proudly with the bike we fixed together. Another photo showed him holding a science project we built in the garage. Every memory screamed that I belonged at his graduation, but still I stayed away because of Linda's words. I sat back down and whispered, "Maybe it's better this way. I won't ruin his day. He deserves to shine, even if I'm not there." But in my chest, it didn't feel better. It felt like I was betraying myself, betraying the love I had poured into my grandson for 18 years. As I sat in silence, I thought back to the conversations Jacob and I had shared over the years. He often told me, "Grandpa, you're the one who taught me how to work hard." He once said, "I don't know if I'd even graduate if it wasn't for you helping me with math." Those words gave me strength now. Maybe I wasn't at the ceremony, but deep down, Jacob knew my role in his life. Maybe that was enough. But what I didn't know at the time was that Jacob had been planning something all along. Months before, he had gone to his principal, Mr. Lewis, and told him, "My grandfather is the reason I'm here today. He deserves to be honored, even if no one else sees it." Jacob wasn't just proud of me. He wanted the whole world to know what I meant to him. While I sat at home, drowning in the silence of rejection, Jacob was standing on that stage, making sure my name would never be forgotten. The turning point came in a way I didn't expect. Not through me fighting or demanding my place, but through my grandson's love. At that very moment, as the last of the diplomas were handed out, Mr. Lewis cleared his throat and made an announcement that would change everything. I wasn't there to hear it firsthand, but the story was told to me later by neighbors and friends who rushed to my house afterward. They said the crowd had gone quiet as the principal stepped up to the microphone. He looked out across the sea of graduates and families, and then he said, "This year, our school is proud to begin a brand new tradition. We are introducing a scholarship that honors the values of sacrifice, hard work, and quiet love. It will be named after a man who gave everything to his family without ever asking for credit. Please join me in recognizing the Walter Hayes Scholarship." My name was spoken in that hall where I was told I wasn't needed, and it wasn't just spoken, it was honored. The crowd gasped at first, then erupted into applause. People rose to their feet, clapping loudly. The same families who had waved at me with pity that morning were now cheering for me, even in my absence. Jacob stepped forward, holding a plaque with my name engraved on it. He took the microphone from the principal and said, "This is for my grandfather, the man who taught me everything. He's the reason I stand here today. He may not be in the room, but he's in my heart, and now his name will live on for every student who follows." Back at my house, I didn't know any of this was happening yet. I only felt the crushing weight of missing such a milestone, but the turning point had already come. My years of love and sacrifice were no longer invisible. The very thing Linda had tried to erase, my importance in Jacob's life, was now being broadcast to an entire community. The silence of my living room hid the storm happening at the school. While I sat there believing I had been forgotten, the truth was the exact opposite. For the first time in my life, I was about to be remembered not just by my grandson, but by everyone who had ever doubted my worth. While I sat at home in my quiet living room, tapping my fingers against the armrest of my old chair, something remarkable was happening across town. I didn't know it at the time, but later, when neighbors and even strangers told me what they saw, the story became clearer than if I had been there myself. After the graduates received their diplomas, the principal, Mr. Lewis, stepped forward to give his closing remarks. Families leaned forward in their seats, expecting the usual speech about hard work and bright futures. Instead, he paused, looked around the packed gymnasium, and said, "Before we end today's ceremony, I have a very special announcement. This year, we are beginning a new tradition, one that honors sacrifice, loyalty, and the kind of love that often goes unseen." The crowd hushed, curious. Then Mr. Lewis raised a card and read out my name. "It is my great honor to announce the Walter Hayes Scholarship." The words were like thunder. My name, spoken loud, clear, and proud in front of hundreds of people. At first, there was silence, a brief shock. Then gasps filled the air, followed by clapping, then cheering. The entire gymnasium rose to their feet. My neighbors later told me they had never seen anything like it. Parents wiped tears from their eyes. Teachers nodded in approval, knowing what I had meant to Jacob's journey. Even people who didn't know me stood and clapped, carried by the power of the moment. But the most powerful moment was when Jacob himself stepped forward. Dressed in his cap and gown, holding his diploma in one hand, he took the microphone with the other. His voice shook at first, but then grew strong as he said, "This scholarship is for my grandfather, Walter Hayes. He's the man who taught me how to work hard, how to believe in myself, and how to never give up. He is the reason I stand here today." The crowd cheered louder. Jacob held up a plaque with my name engraved, and the whole audience leaned in to see. "This will help future students who need support," he continued, "just like my grandfather always supported me. Even when no one else believed in me, he did. This is his legacy, and I want the world to know it." I wasn't there to hear his words directly, but when my neighbor's daughter recounted them later, her eyes filled with tears. She told me, "Mr. Hayes, you should have seen the pride on Jacob's face. He made sure everyone knew that without you, he wouldn't be where he is today." I imagined the scene as if I had been sitting in the front row, my grandson standing tall and brave, giving credit not to wealth, not to power, but to the quiet love of his grandfather. And the irony cut deep. While Linda had told me I wasn't needed, Jacob was proving to the entire town that I was more than needed. I was essential. Back in my living room, I heard a knock on the door. It was one of my neighbors, out of breath, rushing from the ceremony. "Walter, you won't believe it," she said, nearly bursting with excitement. "They just announced a scholarship in your name. Everyone was clapping. The whole school stood up for you." I stared at her, not sure I had heard correctly. "In my name?" I whispered. "Yes." She nodded quickly, her smile wide. "Jacob made sure of it. He spoke about you for 5 minutes straight, telling the whole room how much you mean to him. You weren't there in person, but you were the star of the ceremony." I sank back into my chair, my hands trembling. For hours, I had felt invisible, forgotten, erased by my own daughter's cruel words. But in that moment, I realized I had never been invisible to the one person who mattered most. Jacob had seen me, and not only had he seen me, he had lifted my name higher than I ever thought possible. By the end of the day, more people stopped by or called, all sharing the same story. "Walter, you should have been there. Walter, the scholarship announcement brought the house down. Walter, you are a hero in this town now." For the first time in years, I felt tears slide down my cheeks, not from sadness, but from overwhelming pride. My daughter might not have wanted me there, but my grandson had given me a place far greater than a seat in the gym. He had carved my name into the future, ensuring that long after I am gone, the Walter Hayes Scholarship will live on. That was the climax. That was the moment my life's quiet sacrifice became something larger than myself. And though I missed the standing ovation, I didn't miss the truth. The truth was that my love had not been wasted. It had taken root in Jacob's heart, and now was blooming for the world to see. That evening, after the ceremony ended, I sat alone in my living room with the window cracked open. A soft summer breeze carried the sound of distant cars and laughter from families returning from graduation. I tried to picture what it must have been like inside the gym. The applause, the cheers, the moment my name was announced. I had heard it secondhand from neighbors and friends, but even then, my heart swelled in a way I could hardly explain. For hours, I stayed in my chair, replaying their words in my mind. The Walter Hayes Scholarship. Even saying it quietly myself felt unreal. I thought back to all the years when I had worked with greasy hands in my small shop, saving what little I could, doing my best for my daughter and her family. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine mine would be honored such a way. Then, just as the street outside grew quiet, I heard a knock at my door. I opened it, to find Jacob standing there in cap and gown, his diploma tucked under his arm. His eyes were red from crying, but his smile was wide. Without a word, he stepped forward and wrapped his arms around me. "Grandpa," he said, his voice breaking, "I did it. For you." I held him tightly, my own tears finally spilling over. "You didn't have to do that, Jacob," I whispered. "All I ever wanted was to see you happy." But he pulled back and looked at me with a seriousness I had never seen before. "No, Grandpa. I had to. You've been there for me more than anyone else. You taught me how to keep going when life was hard. You gave me your time, your love, and your patience." Everyone needed to know that I was speechless. In that moment, every long night, every sacrifice, every time I thought I was forgotten, it all felt worth it. My grandson had not only remembered, he had made sure my story would be remembered forever. Not long after Jacob arrived, Linda came to my door too. She stood awkwardly on the porch, unable to meet my eyes. Her usual confidence was gone. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet. "Dad, I was wrong. I shouldn't have treated you that way. I shouldn't have told you that you weren't needed. I let my pride get in the way, and I'm sorry." I studied her face, the face of the little girl I had once carried on my shoulders. Part of me wanted to hold on to the anger, to remind her of the pain she had caused, but another part of me knew that anger would only poison what Jacob had just healed. So I sighed and nodded. "What matters now," I said softly, "is that you understand. Family isn't about who looks most important. It's about who shows up, quietly, every day." Linda's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in years, she hugged me, and I felt some of the distance between us melt away. It didn't erase everything, but it was a start. Later that night, Jacob and I sat on the porch, the cool air wrapping around us. He leaned back in his chair and said, "Grandpa, one day, when future students get that scholarship, they'll ask, 'Who was Walter Hayes?' And I'll be able to tell them, 'He was the man who taught me how to believe in myself.'" I looked at him and smiled, my chest full of pride. "Jacob," I said, "the real honor isn't the scholarship. It's you. Seeing the kind of man you're becoming. That's all the recognition I'll ever need." As the night went on, I realized something important. Recognition doesn't always come when we expect it. Sometimes the people closest to us will forget our sacrifices, or even push us aside. But love, the kind of steady, quiet love that gives without asking for anything in return, always finds its way back. It might take years. It might come from places we never imagined, but it never disappears. That day, I was told I wasn't needed. Yet by the end of it, I learned the truth. We are always needed by the ones who truly see us. And though I missed the applause inside that gym, I received something greater. The knowledge that my love had left a mark strong enough to outlive me. I went to bed that night with peace in my heart, knowing that when people spoke the name Walter Hayes, it wouldn't just be a name. It would be a reminder of love, sacrifice, and the quiet strength of a grandfather who never gave up on his family. If this story touched your heart, make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment below where you're watching from. I love hearing from all of you.